Hi everyone, it's Nicole here today with the Spellbinders January 2019 Small Die of the Month. I have a couple of cards to share with you today. This is an amazing value. For $12.50 plus shipping, you are getting all of the dies that create these adorable paper dolls. There's tons of variations you can create. You can create boys and girls, different hairstyles, different outfits. And if you are like me, I loved paper dolls when I was a little girl, so this is right down my alley. I have done other kinds of doll projects over the years. I did a paper doll journal a few years ago that you can check out here on YouTube. There's a whole playlist for that. Using Julie Nutting dolls. So this is something that's really near and dear to my heart, and I think it's just incredible the amount of dies you get with the small die of the month and what all you can do with them. So I want to share with you the cards I created today. I've got 2 cards here, plus if you want to catch my video here, I believe it's either tomorrow or the next day, I'm going to have another example with these used with the large die of the month. We're even going to incorporate some large die of the month dies into one of the cards here as well. I am starting with the pink background, the card with the little girl holding a trio of balloons. I did die cut the skin pieces from Nina's Smooth White cardstock, and I'm coloring them in with Copic markers. I have done this before. I will link to a project at the end of this video where I have colored in die cuts, Spellbinders die cuts, with Copic markers to customize them. I did not color in everything. I love pattern paper. I don't use it near as much as I used to. I have tons of, I used all Doodlebug today. I'm especially drawn to their tone-on-tone prints, especially the teeny tiny ones. And those work great for die cutting their clothes. But the skin is something that just, to me, I like the shading that you get with Copic markers or other kinds of markers more than just a solid cardstock. Same goes for the hair. I'm going to do something a little different than coloring in white cardstock for the hair, but it does have shading with Copic markers as well. And I did die cut the hair from a colorful cardstock, and then I'm taking my Copic markers and feathering in to add that shading. And what you're going to end up with is hair that's got so much more texture and character. Just kind of follow along those lines of the dies. You can see the great texture that the dies create in this or in these pieces. But with the addition of the Copic markers, they have so much more texture, which is something that to me gives these little characters on my cards all of that dimension, all of that interest. And I really recommend giving it a try. It's really minimal coloring if you just stick to the hair and the skin for these, and then die cut everything else out of either solid cardstock or Nina cardstock, whatever you like to do to create your backgrounds and the additional embellishments. So just a really good idea. I am going to do this same technique that you see here with the brown hair for my second card. I did leave it out of the video because this is a little bit longer video. I've been creating some longer videos lately, mostly because many of my videos incorporate more than one card and more than one technique or putting things together, and I hate speeding them up too much. I think a lot gets lost in the video. I will definitely not do tons of 30-minute and beyond videos, but some videos will be a little bit longer. I've heard some great feedback. Some of you like that, but I definitely don't want to do that every time because I know everyone's time is limited. But just when I have something kind of more detailed like these cards to share, I will try to keep the videos, keep more of the information in the videos, I guess I want to say. So for the hair that I just colored that I mentioned, I did use that same piece for the boy's hair. That's kind of your main piece. There are the little pigtails. You could also just do a single ponytail with these pieces I used here. There's the little pigtail hairbands, which are fantastic. I'm going to use those on both cards for both of the girls. There's a couple of different eye options. I am using the crystal katana to pick these up and place these down where they go. You could color these in with markers if you wanted to. I kept it easy. Like I said, I only did skin and hair. I die cut the eyes from black cardstock, and then I'm gluing those down in place. I always start with the faces. For me, that really just kind of helps with where I go next and putting everything together. The one thing I did for the eyes is take a white pen and add a little highlight, because I think that just makes their face come to life, especially where we're not coloring those in or anything like that. Then there is a collar die, which works great, and it really, you can almost even see it. I die cut that from the lighter pink pattern paper and then glued the head to that, glued then that piece to the dress, added the skirt, added the little ruffles on the arms. You don't have to add those if you don't want to, but I added the ruffles to the arms, added the little pink cheeks. I did die cut those from Ballet Slippers Lawn Fawn cardstock and glued them in. You could also just use a Copic marker if you wanted to, but these are die cutting projects, and so I tried to implement as many of the dies as possible just to show how you can use these together. Then I added the pigtail holders, of course. I added the shoes. I added the little sock piece. The socks, the ruffle trim, the collar, and the pigtail holders all cut from a light pink cardstock, the dress from a darker pink. And there is my little girl. How adorable is she? I just love it. There's also two different arm options. I think I used the same one on both cards today, but you could, mix that up, use whatever you want. For the background of this card, I'm doing a little tone on tone. You guys probably know this already with me, but I'm drawn to tone on tone. Where this is so much die cutting and layering with the paper doll characters, I decided to keep my background pretty simple, but I still want it to really help tell the story of my image and complement the image. So I did an ombre effect of picked raspberry to spun sugar, but I left that bottom area white. It naturally gives a fantastic area to ground the image because she's going to be standing along the bottom edge of that card. Now the background is beautiful just with ink, but I love the addition of stenciling, especially Simon Says Stamps' latest release is called You Are Loved, and there is a reverse heart stencil in this. It's kind of I call it the chubby heart stencil instead of the more kind of skinny up and down. And what I love is I think it complements the heart balloon really nicely. But I'm going to then ink over my background with picked raspberry ink, doing that ombre effect, just kind of lightening as I go. I chose not to use spun sugar over the spun sugar because it just isn't going to show up. I instead just used a really light hand with my picked raspberry, and I end up with a beautiful heart pink tone on tone background. So there's kind of what I'm thinking. I'm going to have her tucked over to the right. She's going to be holding a trio of balloons. I'm going to customize these balloons. These have been die cut with Passionate Pink cardstock from Gina K, the Cotton Candy cardstock from Simon Says Stamp, and the Doll Pink cardstock from Simon Says Stamp. And then the balloon strings were die cut from Simon Says Stamp Smoke Gray. And she's going to be holding these kind of in her hand. We're going to customize a couple of the balloons with text, and then I'm going to add some additional text even to the background. This is a really text-heavy design. I did not plan on that originally, but as I was working on it, I really loved how it turned out. So this adorable greeting is from the Stamp Market Bear Hugs stamp set. It says, "Consider yourself hugged," which really is going to work with the rest of the greetings I'm using. I stamped this on one of the darker pink balloons with a clear embossing ink and then heat embossed that with white embossing powder. The I Heart You sentiment is from the Simon Says Stamp Uplifting Sentiments stamp set. And I like that it's a different font, obviously. It's bigger. It's going to kind of fill in the whole space. But it's I Heart You. Consider yourself hugged. Then we're going to have XOXOXO, hugs and kisses, and hi. This card works for so many different occasions. Doesn't have to be Valentine's. There's nothing on this that says Valentine's. It could definitely work for Valentine's if you wanted it to. But it's just a really sweet love-themed card, which I really, really love. So we're going to get that I Heart You on there. I had some stray embossing powder flakes that I'm removing with a small paintbrush. If you ever have some little embossing powder flakes that just won't tap off no matter what you do, a small little paintbrush usually will take care of that. So there are the balloons. They do have some powder residue on them, so I'm just taking a dry paper towel, you could use a dry rag, and removing that powder residue because that does kind of take away from the overall look and feel of the card. And I'm going to figure out how to tuck my balloons here. I opted not to add anything to my third balloon. I had considered it. I had considered adding the XOXO, maybe in a pink, dark pink ink, lots of different things. And it felt like it was going to be a little too heavy with the text. I'm going to have those text balloons. I've got my text down below. So I decided to keep it blank, and I'll show you. I'm going to shift it up, which works a little bit better with the design, I think. I stamped Hi first. The Hi is also from the Stamp Market Bear Hugs stamp set. Then I am stamping Hugs and Kisses from that Stamp Market Bear Hug stamp set. And XOXOXO is from Simon Says Stamp Sinful Sentiments. This is a project near and dear to my heart. I love mixing and matching product from different manufacturers to make a truly unique card. It's probably one of my all-time very favorite things. There is so much represented here, from Simon Says Stamp to the Stamp Market to Lawn Fawn ink, Lawn Fawn cardstock. The ink I'm using is Plastic Flamingo from Lawn Fawn. To the accents we're going to use on the card from Honeybee Stamps, to the dies are all from Spellbinders. So shop your stash when creating cards. It doesn't all have to be from one manufacturer. In fact, I think many times the project is so much more interesting if it's not. Especially these greetings. That's something that can sometimes be a little tricky, but I love how this all flows and goes together so well. I think it really ended up working super, super great. So we're going to start with that light pink balloon, and a lot of it's going to get cut off. It just adds, I like 3. I like an odd number of embellishments rather than an even number. So even though some of that is going to be trimmed off, it adds to the feel that she's holding that trio of balloons. So we started with the light pink one. We added the I Heart You one. I'm kind of maneuvering and manipulating these balloon strings. I don't mind them covering up some of the text there that we've stamped directly onto our background, but I don't want it covering up too much of it. I still want it to be legible. The XOXO is more of a design element. I mean, it is a greeting, but it's a design element. But I don't want it covering up too much of Hugs and Kisses. I still want that to be legible. So I had to kind of manipulate and work that around a little bit to make it work better. Once we have our balloons and balloon strings, we can glue her down. I did use liquid adhesive. I found that that worked the best for this card just because it can be a little tricky to glue it down and get a really good adhered image with something else. So I did smudge a little glue, and then I think ink from my fingers got on the background, so I'm taking my Mono Tombow eraser and erasing that, trimming off anything hanging off the edge of my background panel. This is A2 sized, meaning it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. We will pop this onto a top fold card base. And then I'm finishing my card with my very favorite, and I'm sure you guys, if you follow me, know this, I use them all the time, Honey Bee Stamps Candy Hearts. They are these awesome little foam embellishment hearts in the color Hug Me, which is a light pink. On this card, I thought that worked really well. On the next card, we're going to be using the Be Mine color, which is the white. Probably my most often used color, but I just absolutely love these little hearts. I think they're so fun. So look at how cute those are on the background, and they really add to the design. Next, I'm going to share my next card example featuring 2 of these doll images put together to create this love-themed card. I've die cut the blonde hair from Lawn Fawn Vanilla Malt cardstock, and I'm feathering in with some E31 and 55 to give that blonde hair look. So the base color was not white. I started with Vanilla Malt, and I only had to shade in 2 colors to get that great texture for blonde hair. Everything else is going to be colored just like you saw in the first doll, so I have cut out quite a bit of that for this card. I won't be sharing all of the coloring of the skin and things, but I completely changed up my color scheme for this card. Originally, you can see the little mint shirt. I thought I would do coral and mint, but when it came right down to it, as I've mentioned earlier, I'm a tone-on-tone kind of girl, and I opted to switch out his shirt with a different coral pattern paper. And I think I'm glad I did that. I would still like to revisit the mint, so I just tucked those into my die cut package so that when I create more paper doll images, I can use that for another card. I always think it's funny how the faces look, or anything that you're any die cuts that you're coloring with Copic markers when you just start out, because it looks a little funny until you get more things layered, like where I colored the head. I used the hair as a guide. There's no sense in coloring all the way to the top of the head. I did for my first card, and I realized that was kind of silly because it's getting covered up with hair. So this could be a little boy. If you don't add any hair, you could add pigtails for a little girl. I added the long braided pigtails for this little girl, colored those in again with my E31 and 55 Copic markers. And then you can see I just left that little space where the little hairband goes white, and I'm going to glue the pigtail holders there in place. Again, I'm just assembling her just like I did the last little girl, where you add the head to the collar of the dress. Add that to the dress itself. I added the ruffle. You don't have to add the ruffle. The sky's the limit. There are just so many ways to use this. I am going to glue one of her arms down in place and the ruffle of her sleeve, but the other arm I'm going to hold off a minute, and that's because I'm going to take the Bouquet Wrapper from the large die of the month, and I did die cut this from another coordinating pattern paper that's kind of in the same coral color. I love that these are double-sided. I think that works really well for something like this that we're folding. And I didn't color her other arm yet because I'm going to bend it to fold around and hold this bouquet of flowers, almost like the little boy gave her this bouquet of flowers. So let's go ahead and put him together. Added the other eye option, added the hair that I've already shaded in, shaded it just like the first card. We're going to adhere his face to a collar, then to the plaid shirt, some little gray pants. And then add the shoes, and I did die cut his socks from white. You could just leave the shoes too if you wanted to. I almost considered that, but I'd already added the glue, so we'll add the little sock image. And then I die cut the stems and flowers from the large die of the month for January from green cardstock and red cardstock. I believe this is Simon Says Stamp Green Leaf and Lipstick Red. The lipstick red really complements the coral color of these pattern papers. I purposely picked something that would complement this. We're going to tuck some of those stems into the bouquet wrapper, and then we're going to add little dabs of glue and just start adding in our flowers. So little dabs, just popping those flowers in place. I have my tweezers here because they help hold that wrapper together. Anytime I'm gluing something and I need it to stay put and it's not, I can't really lay something flat on top of it like an acrylic block, I love to use some tweezers. I think they really help a lot. And I am really covering all of these flowers. Now, something I did not consider, part of the bouquet is going to hang off the edge of the card. These are pretty big images, which you can see. They fill the card front. So I'm going to have to snip off part of that, but that's okay. I would rather have it too full than not full enough. I'm then embellishing, pardon me, the center of my flowers with some pretty Paint Posh Shamrock jewels. They're in a green color, which really works great here. Add a tiny bit of sparkle and finishes off the flowers really nicely. So then I need to figure out how to have her holding this. I'll use my tweezers to hold her hand down in place to keep that put till the glue dries. And then the bow from the large die of the month was die cut from that lipstick red cardstock as well, and we're going to glue that in place like it's tied around the bouquet here. And I guess I forgot the little boy's arms, so we better color those in and add those as well. I want it to look like they're holding hands and that she's holding this bouquet of flowers. Aren't they so cute? I'm just addicted to these now. I think they're so much fun, and I hope you guys think they're fun as well. So we've got the boy and the girl. Let's add his little cheeks. Looks like we got just about all of the dies covered here, and it's going to be time to create our background. Glue these down, add some greetings, and add those finishing details. I did take a white pen and not only embellish the eyes with the highlights, but the tip of their shoes gave their shoes a little highlight as well. I did that on the first card too. Now this is the exact same technique, just with different colors. I love abandoned coral and dried marigold together. It's kind of a non-traditional lovey theme color combination, but I think it's one that's super effective. I really love it with the coral colors of pattern paper I used, as well as the blonde hair. I really like that together. But it's something that I do for all kinds of Valentine's and love-themed cards. I, in fact, created some with waffle flower stamps here not too long ago. Same thing last year in 2018. This was a color combination I used for Valentine's cards. If you want to go back that far and look, this is nothing new that I've done, but it's one of my all-time favorite color combinations. Have to work a little bit harder to get a seamless blend, but it's totally worth it. The background is exactly the same, an ombre from the abandoned coral to dried marigold to pretty much white. And then we're going to take the same reverse hearts stencil and stencil over our background with the hearts, doing an ombre effect with abandoned coral. And this time we will use the lighter color, the dried marigold, to give those hearts pretty much all the way through the background, just lightening it up at the very bottom of the panel. So any kind of stencil background just adds to the overall appeal, where both of these cards have a love theme and a heart theme to them. Hearts are a great option, but you could do stars, you could do stripes, you could do a plaid, you could do all kinds of backgrounds. This also works really great with a background stamp. If you don't have stencils, background stamps would create a very similar effect that would be really fun as well. Let's clean up our work surface to make sure we don't transfer ink to anything that we don't want it to be on. There's our boy and girl. They're going to kind of fill in pretty much all of the card, leaving a great little space up at the top for our sentiment. Now, I decided that I did not want to center the greeting. I want it to either be shifted to the right or shifted to the left. And I played around with lots of different stamp sets for this, but ultimately I picked probably my favorite greeting, love-themed greeting stamp set, current one anyway, and it is from the Simon Says Stamp You Are Loved release. It's called Love Messages, and I have used it for everything. If you go back several weeks when this release first came out, I've used it in lots of Spellbinders projects. I've used it for Simon Says Stamp projects. I've just used it all over the place, and I love it. We are going to use We Make a Great Team, So Happy You're My Partner, and then the little I Love You right underneath that. And I'm shifting it over to the left. It's going to be just above the little boy. I'm going to stamp this with clear embossing ink and heat set it with white embossing powder. Do make sure that your background is completely dry before you do this. I actually came back the next morning and did this because I had started it one day and I finished it the next. And so my background was dry. If you need it to dry quicker, hit it with a heat tool first because Distress ink tends to stay wet a little bit longer. If you're using Distress Oxide, it stays wet quite a bit longer, so you will want to make sure your background is completely dry before you add embossing powder, or it's going to stick to the stenciled hearts or just the inked background. And I love that white, bold embossing on the colorful background. It just kind of blends into the card instead of takes away. Really important so that it doesn't detract from our little boy and girl image, I think. And I think the white is such a great option as opposed to a black ink. I did add these little hearts from the Love Messages stamp set, stamped with the Abandoned Coral ink, just to emphasize a few hearts in the design. And I obviously, that one right above their holding hands, I made sure that that was kind of centered right there between them. Gluing the boy and girl down, putting something heavy on top to hold them down while that glue dries. And I did drop one of my glued figures on my glass mat. This Tim Holtz glass mat cleans up beautifully, trimming off anything hanging off the edge, so a little bit of his hand, and then of course the flowers that we discussed earlier, and taking some of those leftover flowers, and almost like they fell from the bouquet, we're going to tuck some of those along the bottom edge of the card. A fun way to utilize and use some of these. The final thing I am going to do with my card today is take the Honeybee Stamps white Be Mine candy hearts, and we're going to glue those throughout the card design. So one kind of at the end of our sentiment behind, or right at the end of I Love You, and then several throughout. We're going to adhere one to his top, almost like a little heart design there on his shirt. And then just a few throughout the rest of the design, one on the center of the ribbon tied around her bouquet. And then we will glue this whole panel to a white top fold card base to finish it off. When using little embellishments like this, a positioner of some sort is so handy. I have tried many. I know I've mentioned it several times, especially lately since I got the crystal katana, which I purchased. It was not given to me. I purchased this. It is fantastic. I can't say enough great things about it. I really, really like it. It makes picking up and adhering little embellishments, little die cuts, so fantastic. So it's a really great little tool if you love using all these little embellishments and putting together fun little die cut images like I've shared here today. I hope you guys have enjoyed these cards. Here is a final look at both of them side by side. Wanted to show you a finished little viewing of this. Let's trim off, I guess, these little flowers along the bottom edge. I forgot I had that still there. But I completely left the video at real time so that you could see both of the finished cards side by side. You can create all kinds of fun scenes and cards with this Spellbinders Small Die of the Month. For January 2019, this set is called First Crush, and you can join the Small Die of the Month Club Kit for $12.50 plus shipping. So much fun, and I highly, highly recommend it. So here are both cards side by side. Aren't they adorable? I hope you guys have enjoyed this as much as I've enjoyed putting these together for you. There is the little girl on the pink background, and then the little boy and girl on that coral background. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for these cards featuring the Spellbinders January 2019 Small Die of the Month Club Kit dies. The supplies I used to create my cards are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos featuring Spellbinders that you might be interested in. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.